Well, today, we are going to learn about the oldest women's heritage society in America, and we will learn it from national leaders of the organization. Lynn Berry, who currently serves as national historian, is a past national president, having served 3 terms. She's writing a book on the history of the organization's history. Give a wave, Lynn. There she is. National Secretary Elizabeth Rock is a 2-term past national president and is chairman of the organization's national headquarters and museum. There she is. And Janice Stevenson is serving as both national treasurer and state president. So please welcome our 3 speakers today.
Whoops. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. I thought I did something. Well, good morning. At least I think it's still morning now. Okay. All right. And we're happy to be here and tell you a little bit about our organization. And in order to do that, I have to back up a little further into history than the organization itself. Are you or any of you aware of what the Sanitary Commission was during the Civil War? Okay. See, nobody talks about that anymore. But the Sanitary Commission was authorized by Congress during the Civil War, at the beginning. The problem with volunteers doing things to support the war effort overwhelmed the post office in a nutshell. And every little community had its own little ladies' aid society or a sewing society or a church group, and they were all sending things to their boys off fighting at the front. And the post office service went bonkers. And most of the time, their packages did not get to the right person, at least not immediately. So this was an obvious problem. And finally, the government took control of this and formed what was known as the Sanitary Commission. And you still had the same people locally working, but now they were formally a part of the Sanitary Commission, which meant that when they had things ready to send to the front, they had a definite place to take it, a depot sort of place, and they had no problems getting it to the front. It was well organized, and things went where they were supposed to go. So this was during the Civil War. Now, in this area, in Massillon and a lot of towns around here, you had your own little branch of the Sanitary Commission. And for anybody who's really interested in this, there's a lovely book called Our Acre and Its Harvest. And it is basically the whole rundown of the Sanitary Commission in Northern Ohio. And basically, the Cleveland ladies, mostly wealthy society people, but that's okay, they organized and ran the Sanitary Commission. And so anything that came from down here or anybody, anywhere in Northern Ohio, a little bit of southern Michigan and western Pennsylvania, went to the depot in Cleveland. And this picture is the Cleveland headquarters building. Now it's still there. It's down in the warehouse district on 6th Street, West 6th Street. And the building's still there, and now it is a, what was it, a Starbucks. So, but it's still there, and it looks somewhat like this if you know what you're looking for. So, anyways, this was a very active group, and they supplied the troops with thousands and thousands of shirts and blankets and socks and all kinds of things. But that's a whole separate subject, so I won't go on about them. But just be aware that you had many people here in Massillon and all the towns around that were members of this group. So when the war ended, they folded their tent and went home, basically, because the war was over. And so, the year following the war, in 1866, the veterans, the Union veterans, decided that they missed the camaraderie of their fellow soldiers, and they formed the Grand Army of the Republic. And I'm sure most of you have heard of that, right? Okay. So this is 1866. It formed in Illinois and then spread like wildfire. People joined by the thousands. And although they claimed that they were not a political group, let's just tell you that the next 5 presidents were members, okay? Among others in government. So this was a very busy group. And they not only wanted the camaraderie, but they were truly the first veterans group in this country. They were the first ones that would help other veterans, and they would build hospitals and things. And in Ohio, for instance, you had what is now the Ohio Veterans Home in Sandusky. Originally, it was the Ohio Soldiers and Sailors Home, and it was built by veterans. They raised their own money, they had land donated, and they built the lovely home, which is still there. And they have one original building left, which we don't know the future of that, because we did have our headquarters there for about 10 years, and COVID hit, and I don't know if they're ever going to open that building again. So anyways, this is why we're over closer to here. The introduction didn't mention Valley City, which is on the west end of Medina County, but that's where our new headquarters is. And literally new. I mean, we just opened it, a month ago? So yeah, that's another subject too. So what happened was, as the years passed and the veterans themselves were getting old and tired and dropping like flies, unfortunately, they had to have more help to help their own soldiers and the families, the widows and the orphans. So what happened was, in 1881, a group from the Trenton Post in New Jersey asked the wives and what? Oh, I'm sorry. See, I can't do that. Okay, I'm sorry. I never did that. Is that it? Okay. So the veterans in Trenton, New Jersey, asked some of the wives and local helpers if they would form a little group and help them with the fundraising. And the ladies said sure. And so in November and December of 1881, they formed a group in Trenton called the Loyal Ladies League. So I just talk. So anyway, these ladies became a formal group, a formal veterans group, and the group spread again very quickly. It spread into Pennsylvania, and we had one circle, the locals are called circles, and we had one circle in Youngstown right away in the early 80s. It was probably 82 by the time that happened. And by 85, we had departments or state organizations of the group in not only New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and California. Ohio was almost a complete department by then. So it spread very quickly because the men now really needed a lot of help. So there were other organizations of women who were helping the veterans in their own way. And the veterans themselves, the Grand Army of the Republic, called a meeting of all these women's organizations in 1883 in Denver, Colorado, in the hopes that they would all join and become one group and serve as the official auxiliary of the Grand Army of the Republic. Well, here's the problem. These groups had their own requirements for membership. and they didn't want to change. So nothing happened. They had a nice meeting, everybody was cordial, but they did not want to change their requirements for joining. So they gave up and went home and participated as they had been. And in 1886, in Chicago, there was another meeting called. And again, these people sent all their representatives, and they were determined, the Grand Army was determined to create an auxiliary, an official auxiliary. So, same thing happened. They were all willing to be an auxiliary in service, but they weren't willing to change their names and their rules and regulations and things. So, unfortunately, there was a big brawl about who was going to become the auxiliary. They had to have one, and they wanted it in '86. And so finally, the men themselves, they took a vote, and they asked the one group, the Women's Relief Corps, to be their official auxiliary. Now here's the catch. The Women's Relief Corps did not require any relationship with a Union veteran, which was very painful for the other groups, because in order to join the other groups like ours, you had to be at least blood kin. And so all our groups were kind of slighted because it should have been somebody with some blood connection, they felt. But the Relief Corps said, no, any patriotic woman, any woman who wants to serve, y'all come. And they formed the Relief Corps, and the Grand Army made the Relief Corps their auxiliary. So this is why to this day, you still have 4 women's organizations and 1 men's. Okay? So, being 1881 as our founding date, we were the original and oldest group, except for one group of Relief Corps in Maine, which ultimately joined us about 20 years later. Yeah. So, anyway, we went on basically doing what we had been doing during the war itself. We were loyal to our Union veterans. We helped them in all their efforts. They started building hospitals, veterans hospitals, and rest homes and things like that. And we got right on the bandwagon as soon as we became official. We did become a national organization and change our name in 1886 at that Chicago meeting. But in essence, it was the same people doing the same work. So here in Ohio, along with the Veterans Home in Sandusky, and we did a lot of work up there, built a lot of things and donated. You also had a widow's home in Madison, Ohio, which was basically owned and operated by the Relief Corps, but we were the next on the list. We worked with them on that, although our name didn't get on it. And also, there was a children's home, an orphanage in Xenia, Ohio. And it was very successful, and unfortunately they had to close it. You know, the farther you get into modern history and modern facilities, the more regulations and things there are from the government. And so finally Xenia had to give up the ghost, but they were very successful for many years. Most of our groups built libraries and things for them. So those are the 3 main facilities in Ohio that were either originally operated by us in part, or are still in existence in a different capacity, but the buildings are still there. So basically, in addition to serving the veterans, our main occupation is to promote patriotism and teach the history of the war, which are 2 or 3 other programs, and basically help teach patriotism, especially to children. For many years, we donated pictures of Abraham Lincoln to schools and public buildings, and we left a lot of monuments and sundials and flagpoles and things all over. Okay. Okay, so we are congressionally chartered, which is rare. And this happened for us in 1959. It plays havoc with our taxes because nobody knows who that is and what it means. But we are congressionally chartered, which means we are not a 501c3 like other charitable organizations. We are a C1. And most of the IRS doesn't even know about this. It's tricky. But we have it, and we're proud of it. So we are still operating as a national charitable organization, and right now we are basically supporting several different modern groups. First of all, we support Pets for Vets, which is an organization that's trying to go national. I don't know that they're in every state yet, but we help facilitate the fact that they adopt dogs from wherever they find them, if it's a suitable dog, and they put it through training, and they're not service dogs, they're companion dogs. But many, many vets out there really need a companion like that, so that's the main thing. And then there's a young lady named Miss Sawyer up in Michigan, and she started when she was 6 years old, and she just turned 15, I believe. And she's remarkable. Her older brother was in the war in, where was he? Afghanistan. And they couldn't make any contact with him. He was doing something secret. And so in order to feel closer to him, she started collecting things to send to veterans in general. And I'll let one of you probably is going to, okay, Jan's going to give you details of that. But we support this young lady, and she's amazing. She truly is. In fact, we're hoping to get her down here to give a program or something, so we'll keep you informed. So, this is an early convention, obviously. It was in Washington, D.C., and this is the courthouse where they met. And in those days, we were really high on the totem pole. We usually made the President of the United States and his wife honorary members, although some of them, like Harding and his wife, truly supported us and did many things in the background, to help our organization. And then we had conventions with the Grand Army of the Republic all over the country. And we grew by leaps and bounds. By the time we turned into the 1900s, we had over 25,000 members. And we were just one of these organizations. So there were a lot of women's groups doing a lot of work for veterans. And most of us are still out there doing something in some capacity for veterans organizations. Okay, I love this. This is how much clout we had. They had an international event in San Francisco in 1915. And we imported the Liberty Bell to be in that event. So that's the picture with our members. And, you couldn't even think about doing that now. But, one time we had a lot of power, not only locally, but internationally. And we did have organizations all over the country. We had at least 29 different states had a state organization. And again, our membership grew and grew. We tried in 1933 to get a national headquarters in Washington, D.C. And the only problem was we did not have anybody in the White House that was supporting us at that point. And let's be blunt, The DAR beat us to it. So if you're aware of their headquarters, that's what happened. They made the president's wife a member, and she helped them to obtain the big building that they now have as their headquarters. But that's good because it certainly preserved a lot of history that we lost. And this headquarters in Valley City didn't happen until about 10 years ago in Sandusky first. And so over those years, all the property that we had went from one house to another, because when you changed officers, that property went with the office. And so I can't tell you how many accounts there are of train wrecks and flooded basements, and somebody died and the kids didn't know what to do with the stuff, so they threw it out. So it's very depressing. That's why we're so happy to be in Valley City, because we've lost so many things.
Okay, so the picture on the screen here is of our veterans home that we began in California. It is still going today, and it is set up to house female veterans and members of the LGAR. So if you join and you need a nursing home, this is the place for you. Okay, I'm your fact girl today, so I'm gonna give you a little history, a whole blurb of facts and figures. So from 1900 to World War II, we added around 133,000 members. That's a lot. We continued to give aid to the GAR to the tune of $1,000 to $18,000 each year. We began giving to various funds, not just a blank check to the GAR. We were specific on our funds. That included the Southern Memorial Fund, a National Shrine Fund, a memorial to Roosevelt. We left plaques, benches, stained glass windows all over the country, all as a tribute to our Civil War soldiers. Okay, now when we get to World War II, was anybody around in here during World War II? No? We're not quite that old. Kinda, maybe, on the line? All right, so when we get to the World War II era, we were left on the home front, but we played important roles by sacrificing through rationing of food and other material goods. We worked in industries that supported the war effort. We lent time and talent to help those in need here and abroad. And of course, we continued to donate. LGAR members attended Red Cross meetings in official Red Cross sewing rooms. We presented a quilt block and a penny at each meeting. And we raised funds through those quilts, blankets, socks, pajamas, sheets, and shirts. A typical month for us yielded 1,107 working hours in that Red Cross. With 153 garments completed, 2 quilts finished, with 5 more ready to be tacked. Do we have any quilters in here? You know that's a lot of work. So we also began a blood plasma drive, and within just our membership, and the goal was to raise an additional $1 for every member to send to the Red Cross. So if we had 133,000 members, we were sending around $133,000 to the Red Cross. Okay, then we raised around $3,000 each year, again for the Red Cross, for the Blood Donor Service Fund. And our biggest fundraiser, yep, ambulances. Our war service included lead dogs, braille books, line guides, wheelchairs, small radios, and of course more quilts. While our national presidents urged each member to realize the opportunity which was being presented to us as our veterans in the hospitals had the greatest fight of all, the fight back to health. So our work had just begun. We enabled them to take an active part in life again. And even though you had at this point such organizations as the American Legion or the VFW following, right after World War I, by World War II, they were then growing in membership, and guess what? We started to decline. So now we're going to have Jan come up and talk about our membership, and our eligibility.
Elizabeth here's going to be my clicker.
Okay. It's a challenge.
Our membership is for all female blood relatives 10 years of age or older of honorably discharged Union soldiers, sailors, and Marines of the Civil War, with a desire to honor the past through education and preservation. We have membership applications, and I'd be happy to help you find an ancestor from this Union ancestor from the Civil War if you are interested in joining. The local group is the Margaret M. Orr Circle 105 here in Ohio. We are very active on the following projects. Wait a minute.
No magic touch.
Well, moving on. Adjust, adapt, overcome for all of my military friends. Currently, we are baking goods to go overseas to current serving military. We gathered goods to donate to the veterans residing at the Ohio Veterans Home in Sandusky. We just completed the task of a plaque and a bench in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Believe it or not, it was the first time ever that the ladies of the Grand Army of the Republic had placed a bench at Gettysburg. We had never met there officially as a national organization. Ohio was the host for the national convention in Gettysburg, and we went back to our roots and we made sure that that was done. We support living history events. We work a great deal for our national level of the organization and have many serving in national offices. There are 10 national officers. Currently, Ohio has 7 of those national officers. We participate in annual parades, ceremonies, both local and afar. We fundraise for other national veteran nonprofits like the DAV. And because of our National Museum located here in Ohio, local members have completed the process of digitalizing all of our membership activities and archives over the last 6 years to help maintain our National Museum room. Oh, there we go. We teach patriotism, give school programs, donate blood, and preserve cemeteries and monuments. Now on the national level, we are proud supporters of our national project, Pets for Vets, which is dedicated to providing a second chance for shelter dogs by rescuing, training, and matching them with American veterans who need a companion pet. You can visit their website if you'd like to learn more about them. Add in Ms. Sawyer's baked goods. Our new museum in Valley City in Medina County in the Liverpool Township Hall on the main drag just had their grand opening on January 27th. How our room is set up, very unique, one-of-a-kind displays. The Ladies of the Grand Army of the Republic headquarters room is patterned from a late 1880s meeting room, which was and is based upon the original Grand Army of the Republic meeting room with the stations for the altar, senior vice president, junior vice president, chaplain, patriotic instructor, and our head table for the president, secretary, and treasurer. The stations are on loan in the room from an original Grand Army of the Republic hall. We have a number of upcoming events coming up for Mother's Day this year. We do have a Mother's Day fashion show. We're just doing the 1860s, so it's a tea. We do a lot of teas, which is a very Victorian thing to do, and it's what a lot of the ladies did when they get together. So we keep that in perspective. We remember the past, we honor it, so a lot of the things that we do are based upon our original foremothers. But we have an event coming up for that. We also we just recently had a murder mystery dinner, which we had a wonderful time. We were fortunate enough that we do have veterans in our families, and we always drag those veterans along. If you're interested, I'll tell you some story involving my husband and Elizabeth's husband that talks about the daughter of the regiment that we did at a sanitary fair last year in February at the Ohio Regimental Ball. That is another story for another time. But We also are available for anybody that wants to come up and visit us, see our museum, see what we do. We're up there anytime you want us to be. We do have office hours, and anytime the local history centers or historical societies are open in that area, we plan to be open as well. So I will take any questions, or if I don't have the answers, my fellow sisters here would be more than happy to answer those questions for you. Anyone have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Back to the beginning here, why was it called the sanitary commission?
Well, think about it. When you think of sanitary, what do you think of? It was to make sure that our soldiers had those items that they wouldn't necessarily have that the government was providing for them. So sanitary, that's socks, bandages, things that would provide a little bit of comfort from home. Things that, like I said, Edwin Stanton and his War Department were unable to provide for them.
So were these things that inspected when they went through this building where they were sent out? Were they inspected for sort of?
They didn't have inspections back then.
No?
No, there was no such thing as what we consider sanitary today. That was, you know,
It was
that
a new concept in
Yeah.
the Civil War.
it was a new concept. In fact, you can attribute to a lot of those sanitary conditions that we now have to this process. So this was all brand new, new for them, new for us. So it was a name that it was just easy to get, and things were inspected, okay, but they were from home. It was something that we provided, not necessarily the federal government.
You also have to remember that this war lasted a lot longer than most wars, and the Army is only going to supply each soldier with so many things. They're not going to give them the luxuries of home with tobacco or chicken in a jar or an extra pair of socks. So that's where these women came in.
Yeah, they would write home and say, hey, can you knit me a pair of socks, and can you knit one for my buddy here, please? So it's those kind of things. The federal government says you got your one. You don't need any more than that.
Basically, it's what the veterans, what the soldiers are doing right now. If you think about it, also when I was in, and also in Iraq, Afghanistan, all those places, the soldiers are right back home telling their mom that they'd like some chewing gum, or they'd like a bar of soap or something like that. That's what the sanitary fair was for.
Edwin Stanton has decided to make his presence known. This is my husband.
The reason being is the reason that you say that about the sanitary fair, yeah, is,
This is my presentation. Edwin, you talk some other time. This gentleman has a question.
Is this, how about the southern part of the country?
That would be the United Daughters of the Confederacy. We work closely with them for honoring and preserving our history. What they do is all on their own. We meet occasionally, and we do have some members that belong to both organizations, which is very common. But you'd have to ask specifics for the UDC to someone that belongs to them.
Or did they have this organization during the Civil War?
No,
No.
those organizations happened after the war. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
are there any chapters in foreign countries?
We do not have any circles or departments in foreign countries, but they do have some of the Sons of Union Veterans, which is what they call Grand or Allied Orders. They're an umbrella that developed under the Grand Army of the Republic, and the Sons of Union Veterans does have chapters and in units in foreign countries.
And you did have the original Grand Army of the Republic. They did have posts all around the world.
Yeah, for the expats.
Just saying if this Soldiers Home in Sandusky is closing up.
The home itself is not closing up, but the original administration building, which is the last original building that was built in, I think it was built, what, 91?
1991.
Yeah, that building is closed. Right now, the future of that building is, who knows?
Do they have a new one being built there then?
No.
Is there anything in Ohio at all for this?
It's just the veterans home itself, which is a nursing facility.
How about in Canton area?
No, there's nothing.
Because my cousin told me that,
They have homes for veterans,
Okay.
but nothing official through the Ohio Veterans, Department of Veterans. There are private organizations similar to ours that, I'm sure you're talking about the Honor Home and the Valor House. Those are for homeless veterans, and those are privately funded.
Well, this is, he's, unfortunately, stayed 4 campus, so he was told he can go to his home free.
Well, again, that's privately funded. It's similar, those organizations are similar to us, but they're 501(c) organizations, so they're not for profits in that respect. But those are private. The federal government has nothing to do with them. Yes, sir.
Does the GAR still own the building that's up in Peninsula called the GAR?
The GAR Hall in Peninsula is privately owned. The GAR has no, they don't exist any longer, so most of the buildings have been demolished. They've, been sold. In fact, the GAR Hall in Peninsula holds nothing to do with any history of the Grand Army of the Republic. They are the GAR Hall, that's it. They don't have anything to do with us. They don't have anything to do with the Grand Army of the Republic. So they're just, not anymore, since they became privately owned by someone else. So they don't have any affiliation with any of us or our other organizations. Any other questions? Thank you very much for allowing Sister Lynn, Sister Elizabeth, myself, Sister Janice to come in and speak to you on behalf of the ladies of the Grand Army of the Republic